All right, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I had to start this over, so let's get started. Are you married to a United States citizen? This law might be for you, and I'm very excited and happy to share this with you today. I have been talking about it for the past couple of months since the announcement was made by the Biden administration. That was on June 17th, 2024. So I want to review a few things and then let you know about a couple of things that we have learned since that announcement. So, first of all, this is for people who entered the United States without documentation. I know that's a very big deal for most people, but the name of this new rule is called Keep Families Together. Keep Families Together. So, many people, especially in my practice as an immigration attorney, many people are in mixed immigration status families. And that means some people might be US citizens, some people might be residents, some people might have TPS or DACA, and some people might have absolutely no documentation. And so this rule specifically focuses on people with no documentation. So if you entered legally, you have a separate process. If you have humanitarian parole, if you have some kind of authorization to be in the United States, you have a tourist visa, your processes will take place in a different way. Different applications, requirements for you. The target here is to keep families from needing to take the risk of leaving the country to complete this family based process. And so, normally, when someone enters without documentation and they're married to a US citizen, what would normally happen is that the first part of the application can be filed in the United States because that's when the US citizen has to prove their information that they're a US citizen, that they were born here, or that they were naturalized. Um, and so that's their part. They have a right to have their application filed here in the United States. What they would have to do, though, eventually, is go back to their home country and complete the second part of their process in their home country. So, what that means is that if they have any unlawful presence, and most people would in that situation, if they have any unlawful presence, then they would need to get a waiver, which takes around 3 to 4 years to process. If that's approved, then you can move on to your home country process, the consular process. And where people get stuck is having to leave the United States to complete that process in their home country. Because more than likely, people have heard of the horror stories, or maybe their intuition, their fear kicks in, and they just don't want to leave, just in case they might not be able to come back, or they have some sort of castigo, they have some sort of penalty that might be ethical. So there's some people have less of a risk if that waiver, that perdón, is approved and there's nothing else in their background. They can generally go to the consulate and be okay. But there's an enormous amount of fear in that travel, in taking that travel. So this is where the Biden administration has come up with this rule. And basically, it's called a parole in place for a reason. Many people call it spousal parole in place, PIP, parole in place. But I'll talk about it later, but it basically extends to many more people within a family unit. And so, what it allows, it's basically creating a kind of fiction. It's saying, okay, for many, many other people, we're asking them to literally physically leave the country and come back legally so that then they can continue this process within the United States. Because in this particular situation with keeping families together, that's the name of the rule, they are saying you can stay here in the United States, and we as a government, we're going to pretend that you physically left the United States and came back legally without ever leaving your home. And so this is an enormous benefit. There are many details to this, and it gets trickier if you have criminal history and other negative immigration history that I just the principle meant to remove the fear and allow people to continue their process within the United States. All right, so let's review a little bit about the rules that are in place for this. The rules that are in place are you must be married to a United States citizen as of June 17th, 2024. If you got married June 18th, 2024, it is unfortunate, but your application will get rejected. Now, there's some people who live in certain states, because not every state offers this, but they live in certain states where common law marriage is acknowledged and it's viewed as a legitimate form of marriage. However, to prove this to the Immigration Administration, USCIS, you need an extra amount of proof that you and your spouse are living as a committed couple. And you must have begun that relationship prior to January 17th, 2024. It's difficult, okay? They don't take it for granted. They review every single piece of paper that we submit. And so you want to be very careful about what you choose to submit to prove that you're in a committed relationship with your spouse. All right. So the next one is the next part of the rule is that you must have lived in the United States 10 years, a minimum of 10 years, as of June 17th, 2024. Now, most trouble with this because you have to prove that with some kind of documentation, a variety of ways are available to collect the 10 years of proof, but it has to be authentic, it has to be real, and it will be read. So some attorneys still go as far as submitting one document per month of each year, which would be like at least 120 pieces of evidence. Some people will think that once every 2 months or once every 3 months, one document for 3 months is enough. And for each year, for each that whole decade. So maybe 4 to 5 pieces per year, pieces of evidence for 10 years. Okay. And so you can see how this starts to build up, right? This starts to build up in the sense of the paperwork. This starts to become one of these issues where you must provide this documentation that they're asking for. You can't cut corners. You can't say, oh, it doesn't matter. It's just the last, 6 months of the 10th year. It won't matter that much. I'm here now. It matters. And you want to make sure that you understand that they really mean the whole year, right? And so this is not something that you want to take chances with, especially if they request additional evidence. That just takes the time. It takes longer for you to be able to submit this documentation and receive the benefit. Okay. No criminal history Or if you have criminal history, you must provide documentation as to how that crime was resolved. What happened in the case? What did the judge decide? If you have a current case, what's going on with it? Generally, immigration wants you to have a completed case before they can make a decision regarding your immigration status. And so you want to make sure and talk to somebody, a professional, licensed, experienced immigration attorney. Many of us have that criminal defense background, as do I. I practice mainly in the federal criminal defense courts, and so I know quite a bit about people who commit crimes and how that is evaluated within the immigration system. So, immigration is one system, and it's over here. Criminal law is another system, and it's over here. And there might be some overlap, but for the most part, immigration makes a decision based on whether you have the character and you're the type of person that they want in the United States. That's the main evaluation point. They want you to be an upstanding person, a person of good moral character, a person who abides by the law. And so criminal history kind of affects that, right? So you might have certain rights within the criminal defense system that you think I'm back. All right. Uh, so I'll continue with this. And so what we're saying with criminal defense, criminal law and immigration law is that criminal law has a very high bar to be able to prosecute, arrest, um, prosecute, and convict somebody. But once that conviction is on the papers, it's on the books, the immigration system will not look at an expungement, for example. An expungement is basically trying to erase or hide that crime from the general public so that people don't discriminate against you in a job or housing or somewhere who take a look at these types of histories. Unfortunately, immigration does not view expungements as something to be taken into account. If they see that you have something expunged and you're purposely and deliberately trying to hide something from them, it will be viewed even worse. So you want to speak to a professional about that because that is not accepted under the immigration system. All right. This is not last, but it is one of the last main points here, and that's other negative immigration history. So we've already talked about the fact that keep families together, the name of this new rule, is about keeping families together, right? But it is about forgiving someone for originally entering the United States without documentation. And so they're giving you one chance only. If you have multiple times, you've entered without documentation several times, or you were deported and you came back without documentation, and in your mind, your possibly non-legal mind, you think, how are they going to know? How are they going to find out? They have their ways. They have their ways in the methods of interviewing, in the way they look at the wide variety of evidence that they asked for the 10 years. They can make connections to the chances that you probably re-entered without in a subsequent year. They can probably put together from the evidence, if you're not legally married, but you want to establish a common law marriage, now you're providing evidence, and maybe in your mind you're thinking, this is just for the marriage, but that's not the way they evaluate it. And this is what a lawyer can provide for you, a comprehensive review of how everything that you provide, even though you're providing it to prove the 10 years, they can make connections there to determine he more than likely entered without inspection, entered without documentation, at least 2 times more. And those kind of details is where an attorney comes in, right? Especially, it's much worse if you try to hide something than if you bring it up and try to resolve it directly with the government. Okay, much worse. So when I talk about other negative history, your one entry is considered negative history because you entered illegally into the United States. And that's point blank, that's just the way it's viewed. However, they're willing to forgive that as long as you don't have anything else that's serious in your background. And that's where a professional evaluation also comes in. Because if you have something else, you need to know up front how this parole is going to be affected. Because parole in place is one thing, it is the beginning of a long process. It does not include work permits. It does not include your husband's future petition when you start the family petition. It does not include your part for that green card. It does not include that work permit under that green card application. Okay, so only if you attempt to file multiple application, they will deny you. They will automatically reject that application, and they will not allow you to continue until you only submit the parole application. And that parole is evaluated with one eye towards whether you will be able to qualify for a green card in the future. And that's why these things become complicated, even with someone who has a squeaky clean background. 1 second. All right. So those of you with squeaky clean backgrounds, if you want to try this for the first time in your life and you want to save some money or whatever's going on, hey, if you weren't willing to risk going to Mexico or to your home country to finish your family petition, but this is equally a bigger, just as big of a risk to do it on your own by yourself, because there's so many linked factors that go in, factors that build on top of each other, because this is the beginning of a process. This is not the whole process. It's just the parole in place, and then you have to do something with that. You have to figure out, you have to get your employment card, which is not included. You have to get your Social Security, which is not included, right? So there's many more parts to this than just this little part that we're talking about today. Attorneys, a competent attorney does this type of work, this type of evaluation, where I'm talking about this holistic view of, okay, let's take this evidence. What do you mean between the lines? What does this say about entering without papers? um, in the future, within that 10-year span? What does this say about the strong possibility that you might have a child somewhere else, right? People end up saying stuff when they're trying to prove 10 years, or when they're trying to prove that they are legally married to this person. You end up saying stuff that you don't realize could implicate something else in a different part of that rule. And so that is called a legal analysis. And so when people tell you, oh, that's not important, just say no. Just answer that no. That's legal advice. And people who don't have an attorney's license are not authorized to give you that legal advice. So this might appear to be just filling out papers and answering a bunch of questions, but it's not the questions that are available online. Those questions. And that's where people get in trouble. A lot of people get in trouble because they inappropriately answered a question. And in that moment, because your name is on that application and your signature is on that application, you can't really make an argument that a notario helped you fill this out. You can make it, but not when you're trying to defend yourself and they say, well, you lied about how many children you have. You have 4, but this other lady submitted a declaration saying that you really have 6. What happened to the other 2? We asked you how many children you have. You said 4. Why did you say 4? Well, you told me to say. That's not how this works, right? Everything that's on those documents, you are responsible. You, as the applicant, are responsible for that. If you're the beneficiary, your husband or your wife, who's a U.S. citizen, is also responsible for that. But your signature is on that, so you are responsible for that as well. That's where the tricky part goes. And so I don't know, maybe I'll do a video one day about what is legal advice and what does that mean when people think that this is only about filling out papers. Each question that you're answering is part of a law. And each law has requirements underneath it, which you're obligated to abide by. And when you don't understand that, when you're filling out these papers, you can get in trouble, such as the most common reasons that I see people getting in trouble. How many children do you have? Right? So when they say all children, they mean all your children on earth, right? Every single child that you have helped give birth to. And it's not just the US citizen children. It's not just, the children from your favorite baby's mother or your favorite country, all children. And they expect you to announce this and put it, if you have 6, you put 6. You don't know, maybe the wife is, or your ex-wife, your ex-girlfriend is no longer in the picture. You can say that, but you want the same goes for how many times have you been married? They're not asking you how many times you've been married in the United States or how many times you've been married in your home country. They're asking you every marriage you have ever committed to in your entire lifetime on earth. Your time on earth, how many times have you been married? And if you say once, they are going to look for proof of one marriage. But if they find proof of 2 or 3 marriages and you entered into it, in another country and you were allowed to annul that marriage and you didn't think you had to report it because it's annulled, and the lady told me, the lady who helped me fill out papers told me, oh, that's not a big deal. Legal advice. That is legal advice. If they say it's not a big deal, how are they going to know? It was annulled. it's a big deal because that's called omitting facts. When you omit facts, that is considered a lie. And this is a federal document. So you're lying. Have you heard the phrase lying to the feds? You're lying to the feds. That's the consequence of, oh yeah, I'm just not going to mention that. Finally, the most common reason is that people get in trouble is they don't fully disclose their criminal history for the reasons that I mentioned before related to expungement. Oh, that was expunged. I don't need to mention that. Also incorrect. When they ask you what crimes have you committed, they mean all crimes ever in the history of your life on planet Earth, in your country, you, your home, all criminal history. All means all. All of it. All of it. Do not get it into your heads that it's, some things you can and some things you can't. All means all. And that's for anyone who wants to fill this out on your own. I don't know why you would take that risk after waiting all these years to find a way to get a work permit and to get your social security number. But if you're willing to take that risk, you need to know all means all. All criminal history, all negative immigration history. They will find out if you entered without documentation more than one time. They have their ways. It's called critical thinking. It's called piecing together your evidence. It's called doing a background check, calling up the, police, border patrol, checking out film. Hey, they have their ways. And what was the last one? All means all. Oh, all your marriages and all your children. Those are the three main ways that I see people mess this up. And of course, when people enter without documentation, well, how are they going to find out? If the lady who's helping you fill out the papers tells you, how are they going to find out? Well, it's not obvious to you, but to people like me, a judge, a USCIS officer, ICE, Border Patrol, when we see all of these things every single day and we hear the same story, figure it out. And if I can figure it out as an attorney who's evaluating your case, I promise you, a USCIS officer can figure it out too. I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you this to respect the process. This is a federal process. And there's not enough respect for it because especially in the border areas, right? Maybe South Texas, Southern New Mexico, Southern Arizona, Southern California, right? We live on the border and people get away with stuff many times, many, many times. And we hear those stories and we think, oh, it's probably okay just to tell a little white lie. And it's not. It's not okay to tell a white lie because you're lying to the feds now. You're lying to the feds. That's a very big deal. And so this is a phenomenal opportunity. I really want to help you all to jump on this. You need to make it happen. We don't know what's going to happen after November 2024 and the presidential elections. It seriously depends who wins. And even if a Democrat wins, we really don't know if this particular law that just started yesterday, we just got granted access to file these applications yesterday. We don't know if it's going to exist in 2025. So I'm urging you, take this seriously. Don't cut corners. This is not the time to cut corners. Pay what you got to pay. Work your butt off to make those payments. Find friendly, helpful attorney to help you out. Let me see here. This is a QR code. If you're on Instagram, you can't see the QR code, but all my other live streams right now can see a QR code. If you take a picture of this QR code, it will take you to my calendar, my office calendar, and you can see all the times available that you're able to schedule an appointment and speak to me about this issue or any other immigration issue that you might have. And it is important to have that evaluation because this is an investment in your future. It is an investment in your family. And the government can see that it is an investment in keeping your family together. You don't have to necessarily leave anymore. You don't have to do a family petition. If you get approved for parole first, step 1, get approved for parole. Then maybe in step 2, 3, and 4, you'll begin to realize, hey, I can apply for this green card without going to my home country. And that right there is a very big deal. It's a huge opportunity. All right. So for those of you who cannot see the QR code, I am located in South Texas. My phone number is 956-831-1424, 956-831-1424. I am Belia Peña, immigration attorney, and I love helping my community. But because this is federal law, I want you to know that I can accept cases across the nation. And so I also handle international cases. So people who are trying to enter the United States, they are students or a U.S. citizen in the future, we handle those cases as well. So we have primarily virtual and in-person appointments. The virtual appointments will be very similar to this on a video stream, and it's kept confidential. We don't record it. We don't do anything that would compromise your security or your safety. And we have an evaluation. We can do it by phone as well. In person, it's a little bit different. Obviously, there's some people who strongly prefer the in-person option, and I have no problems with that. But typically, it's going to be someone in the South Texas area who wants to meet with me in person. All right. So any questions, give us a call. One more time, 956-831-1424. You can also go to my website, bpeñalaw.com, and you'll see you can schedule an appointment through the website. Or for those of you who can see the QR code, you can schedule an appointment. You take a picture of this code and you'll see my calendar and you'll see the available times. You'll check your schedule. You can just see my schedule right there, and you can see what times will be convenient for you and, well, for both of us. All right. One final thing, now that I'm talking about virtual, this and that, this application is not available by paper. It is only available if you start an online account. Attorneys have the ability to begin this process and submit all the documents for you. But at some point, you will have to create an online account with the federal government and approve that. For example, if I am your attorney, I'm filling this paperwork and submitting all the evidence and submit license number and all of that, you have to log into your account and say, yep, Mrs. Peña is my immigration attorney, and I am allowing her to submit this on my behalf. That's how it should be done. And so when people say that they're going to help you fill out papers, there's no actual paper here. It is an online form, and it is only available online. All right, the last part that I forgot to mention is the cost. So USCIS is charging $580 for this parole in place document. That, once again, does not include a work permit, does not include your social security number, and does not include for sure, any future family petitions that are related to this parole in place. All right, it's all linked together. This is $580 $580 that is only for the parole in place document. And that is important. Those two things are important because if it's an online application, you can no longer pay in cash. You can no longer pay in using a money order. You can't use a paper check. They might have an e-check option. I'm not sure. Typically, what they're expecting you to use is your credit card or your spouse's credit card, maybe. So be aware that that is an issue. You cannot mail this document in. Therefore, you must use an electronic payment method to be able to pay for this application. All right, I've talked long enough. Thank you to those who are viewing. I appreciate your time, and please make ahead. Be wise. Be wise. That's my biggest takeaway from all of this, because it's been too long for you to keep hiding. You are not invisible. You are visible. You are very visible to the government. You're visible to me. I see you. I see how much you've been suffering. My clients and my potential clients, I see how much you have been suffering. So make this the first step on a long road so that you can get your documentation. Stop hiding in the shadows. You are not invisible. You are very, very visible to many, many people. So let's make it happen. Let's get this stuff together, get your act together, get these documents in, and give us a call when you're ready. All right. You can comment below if you need any more help, or you can give us a call.